Hi, good afternoon. Uh, Yesterday's video, I talked a little bit about suffering and what I thought, my interpretation of what I thought that Buddha meant about his comment that all life is suffering. And I took that to mean that the suffering is caused by living in a world of separation and division, longing for that lost memory of unity, togetherness, which is the natural condition of all of us. And did a little research in Vedanta. Vedanta is a school in Hinduism that I've studied some. And they listed 5 causes of suffering that I'd like to share with you today. Not knowing who we are. This kind of ties into what I had just said, that about this remembering what we've always known, remembering which was intentionally forgotten. Attachment, cling to things that are impermanent and having expectations along with that clinging. Aversion, number 3, trying to avoid things that are not real. Full-time job since literally nothing is real. Identifying with the ego and creating separate realities. There's that separation I talked about. And fear of death. Okay. Now I'd like to talk about finding a path that might be most suitable for you. Essentially, there's four yogic paths. And one size never fits all. There's based on what you experience, your personality, what you experience your being most closely reflects. Karma yoga, if you're an active person, karma, remember, is work, actions, and deeds. So if you're an active person and that you want to pursue your understanding based on action, activity, and remember that it's all about selfless action, not seeking a reward. Anonymity, doing something useful for others through your actions without seeking any reward or recognition. This is karma yoga. And there's a lot of karma yogis out there. Next, we talk about bhakti. Bhakti is devotion, love and devotion. These are the people that are full of love. They want to chant the sutras. They love to repeat the name of their guru. They live in a state of compassion. So if you're this type of person that is full of love, there's a path for you as well. And this is all about trust. The first one was through our actions. The second one is really not seeking anything, but just to be with the joy and love of your heart. Just to be, to chant the names. A third is the one that appealed to me. As I've mentioned, I see the mind as a tool. And I saved these last two to contrast the two. Jnana Yoga, which is using your faculties. It's a form of reasoning. And I said before, it's more about paring down, eliminating what's not so. As you study, live, reflect, what's left after this category of not so. And through the power of the mind, you go from information to knowledge, to wisdom. So after you've discarded all that's unknowable, sorry, I skipped a beat. After you've discarded what's not so, the lump that you have left will be in that previous, when I jumped the gun. It'll either be assigned to the realm of unknowable, or it will become part of your lexicon, part of who and what you are as you absorb this information, knowledge, and ultimately wisdom. And the fun thing is that this work is never done, and what you may have relegated to the realms of unknown, you should consider that a temporary condition, because all of those things can be brought back down and resubmitted to the process. Rigorous examination. Once again. And then the last is the one that many people, especially in the West, think that this is what Zen is all about. We call it Raja Yoga. The path of royalty, the people, the elite. At least they considered them elite, and historically they were the elite because they're the ones that had access to this information, as it was closely guarded. And it's through you being considered to be part of the elite that you were privileged enough to have this, to have access to this information. And I'm saying this with a certain amount of, maybe you can hear the tone of my voice, because I'm the opposite of this idea of being privileged, being among the elite who somehow are more eligible for access to this teachings than others. But this path is about rigor. It's what I tried 30 years to do, with the ultimate reward of, through my efforts to essentially conquer quiet, still silence, the mind. And that what's the reward for this effort is clarity. The path that I chose, the previous one, Jnana Yoga, my reward, if that's the right word, was being in a constant state of equanimity, being in the moment, and most importantly, utilizing what I was given. And I'm talking about the faculties. So one, maybe I stuck with it too long, Raja Yoga. But actually, this is what was available to me. This is what's available to most Westerners, to the exclusion of basically the other three. So choose one that suits you, that most closely reflects who and what you are. And so today I introduced a little bit more about suffering because that's the information I got. Hopefully that was useful to you. I still will stick with mine. It's the illusions, which includes the ego, which includes separateness, which includes division, divisory thoughts and actions and deeds. Just simply remembering the forgotten. So today, really, I set out to share some things about awakening, because these certain words just really resonated with me. Two words, that was when I was reading my science fiction, my nightly readings. And everything is a source of inspiration for me. Everything. I never know where the next bit of wisdom will come from. Sometimes it's as mundane as something that was said in a commercial. Most times it comes to me either in a dream, in the waking state, it comes to me through some entertainment. And not everything is entertaining to me. Life is pretty entertaining. People are pretty entertaining. Living is pretty entertaining. So my reading, which I do in that interregnum, the stop in my bimodal and biphasal sleeping patterns, the gap between sleep 1 and sleep 2. Sleep 1 is always interrupted by dreams, that I wake up in the dreaming state in the middle of a dream. Read, meditate, reflect, until I can fall about to sleep again. And it's in phase 2 that I really enjoy my rest. It's in phase 2 that I get the requirements needed from the physical requirements that sleep offers. And I usually wake up kind of spontaneously and not in a dream state. So that second sleep is my restful sleep. But I read these two words, and I'm trying to squint because they're they're here. And the words were sundered and riven. Now, these two words encapsulate for me. Let me Let me repeat them again. Sundered and riven. Kind of an abject condition, but this is exactly how I felt upon awakening. I've mentioned before an infant on the sidewalk, a baby on a dirty, cold, lonely sidewalk for miles. No relief from the concrete, so sundered and riven, because this is like being the process of the consequences of awakening is what I'm talking about here. The events leading up to it, the 4 or 5 steps that many have shared, the commonality amongst those past lives. Reconciling, diametrically opposed, seemingly diametrically opposed. This is non-duality, to see the falsity of duality, that there's separation. The fun part is the laughing and the crying. The laughing and the crying as you approach this reconciliation, this understanding that you can say light, dark, yes. Destiny, free will. Destiny, free will, yes to both. Happy, sad, and that leads to mirth, that leads to humor. And the last step was, for me, the way I visualized it, the way I experienced it, was plunging into the abyss, for lack of a better word. Teacher had taken you to this plateau, to the cliff, pointed, and went on his merry way. You're on your own, Captain. Yes, just as we are born alive, born alone, and just as well die alone, we take that step alone. And before, of course, you can take that step because you have no idea what's awaiting, no expectations, no idea. You've put the fears behind. You no longer is part of that 4 or 5 steps before you're on the precipice, the 4 or 5 steps that occur just before taking that include the recognition, the understanding that we're internal beings, eternal beings, and there is no death. It's understanding the infinity that is life. And for me, these things occurred over the course of a day and a half to 2 days. Sitting in a chair where I didn't drink water, I didn't do any of the physical things from my body. I spent the better part of 2 days in a chair, in a room, by myself. So, take the leap. Everything was, as I said, laughing and crying simultaneously, understanding the cosmic joke, the joke that there was nowhere to go, it was always right here. The joke that diametrically opposed opposites are the same, expressions of the same. This is the non-duality. Understanding how, wrapping your mind around how two opposites. The one that sticks with me is free will and destiny. If you ask me, is it life about free will? I would say yes. And is it about destiny? With equal sincerity and conviction, I again would say resoundingly yes. Without any consequences of incompatibility. And nothing appears more obvious than this basic truth of unity, non-divisiveness, non-separation. But the plunge. And as I've previously, before I took this step, resolved any fear, I did this fearlessly. Step into the unknown. But my words again, sundered and riven, was the abject condition that I felt as a helpless infant, naked on the cold, dirty sidewalk. Utter aloneness, an aloneness that I'd never experienced before or since. This is what I call the consequence of enlightenment, the consequence of awakening. It's, for me at least, was anything but the kind of la-la immersion into bliss that I had prepared so long and expected. Quite to the contrary. And as an infant, as a newborn, we're 100% dependent on being nurtured from the outside. If we're not cared for, if we're not fed, clean, nurtured includes love. Without these, our chances of survival are very slim. But here I was, in the same condition as a newborn. Just as a newborn is welcomed into a world of noise, light, confusion, separation from his mother's womb. What could be more traumatic? Well, like it or not, I found something that was more traumatic. And what added to the trauma as an infant, I have really no memories of the process of being born. Whereas awakening, I have vivid memories which start off in this condition, sundered and riven. I remember experiencing this aloneness, this helplessness, and somehow I knew from the moment that I landed, flat on my back, by the way, laying on my back, shaking my arms and legs, I knew from the very beginning. I remembered the whole experience. I remember falling. I remember landing. I remember the shock of it all. As I'm looking at you, I'm searching for the words, for the word that most captures this. And somehow it's just not available to me. Perhaps I've buried it deeply. Perhaps I'm not remembering so completely as I think I am. It's a sense of isolation, helplessness, and knowing, being cognizant, knowing that there was no one to help me. I was completely alone and on my own, which seems counterproductive to embracing the wholeness, embracing the oneness. And as everything, these events had a purpose. And the purpose was for me to learn. That I had jumped off in one level of spiritual understanding and landed in another. I had gone from a bodhisattva to a Buddha, a baby Buddha. And there was an element of panic not based on fear, but panic based on aloneness. Is this what it meant to awake? And if not, what was the purpose of what I was experiencing? Well, the purpose turns out to be, the purpose is, or was, that now I was alone in my expression of being, that I was still becoming. Once you're a Buddha, it's not static, it's not done. And this was why I experienced it so strongly as an infant. I had to take responsibility for my own nourishment. I had to nurture myself. I had to survive. I had hard work to do. And I've shared before, I've come to understand that 1 year after awakening is essentially 1 Buddha year from anniversary to anniversary is 8 human years. So it took me, I had spent a year being in the state of an infant. Now, no language, no ability to express what had occurred to me, really a rudimentary understanding of what's occurred. And the sense that unity that I thought was an automatic had to be achieved again. In another sense, a deeper, more meaningful sense perhaps. But nevertheless, more steps to take. Now it's approaching 6 years since I experienced that, so that makes me about 48. So, in a way, it's my second time to be middle-aged and everything that goes with that. It's a process of maturation. You're born an infant, a baby Buddha, and you have to mature into your Buddhahood. Now, I've seldom spoken about this part because it flies in the face. Why did I feel alone? Just as there's the people say that Jesus left them at their most critical times. Buddha left me at the most critical time. My spirit guides left me. But actually, and I looked behind and I only saw my footprints, but actually I came to understand that they were carrying me. I wasn't abandoned, I wasn't separate, but I had to grow and mature into my understanding of the immensity of the events that had occurred that altered me forever. No going back.